A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today, so cheers. Now, the book I'm going to review today, I am really excited for because this book was written by my all-time favorite fantasy author, Raymond Feist, who wrote Magician and a ton of books set in the land of Midkemia. And this book, I've actually read it before. This is book one in the Firemane saga. This is King of Ashes. Now, this book is interesting in that it is a completely new world set apart from the world that he created for the Rift War saga and all those other books. This is set on the world of Garn. Now, that means new characters, new politics, new magic system, basically new everything. And I really, really appreciated that. I think Raymond Feist, as an author, just has not only a tremendous grasp of language, his books are fantastically written, but a tremendous grasp of world building as well. The worlds that he creates just feel right in terms of fantasy. Sometimes you'll get a fantasy book that the world doesn't make sense. The religion doesn't make sense. The magic system doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or it's boring, or something along those lines. This, not at all. Now, this is 500 pages long. This was a long, long book. Doesn't feel like you're reading a long book, however, even though the first half to 3/4 of it is really just setting things up. And then towards the end of the book, everything ramps up and it gets really exciting. And then naturally, the book ends on a freaking cliffhanger, which makes you want to go and read books 2 and 3 in the saga. Now, why am I rereading this now? The reason is because Raymond Feist has a new trilogy coming out. Oh, well, I assume it's going to be a trilogy, but it comes out at the end of this month, and it actually bridges the gap between the world we see in the Firemane saga and Midkemia. It brings the characters from this book, or from this trilogy, I should say, together with the characters that we know and love from his other books that are all set on the land of Midkemia. I cannot tell you how fucking excited I am to read that. So I went back and read this, and I will be reading the other 2 books in this saga, which I actually haven't read yet. This is the second time reading King of Ashes. Now, this book starts with betrayal, and then you get a whole lot of politics and stuff. The 2 main characters are a smith called Declan and a 17-year-old kid called Hattushli. They just call him Hattu in the novel itself. They are from kind of different sides of the world, but slowly their stories kind of intertwine and become one. And it is just fun and magnificent and suspenseful, and you get to know and love these characters so much that when something happens, you're on the edge of your seat and you can't stop reading. Really, really fantastic stuff here. This is going to be a somewhat spoiler-filled review of The King of Ashes, but before I do that, before we get into the next episode of Read a Fucking Book, people, I do want to show you the world of Garn, because one of the great things about Raymond Feist is he includes maps in his books so you can actually see where the characters are in relation to each other and where they're moving to and from. So let's just jump straight into the map of Garn. So this is the World of Garn. You'll find this on the inside cover. Sorry about that. The inside cover and the back cover. Now, as you can see, we have the ice flows up here. North Tembria, South Tembria, and the clearing and the island of Colchartan. Okay, so where does this book take place? Hatu's story takes place in Colchartan and on the islands and a little bit on the eastern side of North Tembria. Declan, his story happens in the Covenant lands here, Oncon, and then moves over to the barony of Marcanas and Baron's Hill. And then eventually these kind of all come together as one. That means that in this book, we get nothing about this area of the map, this section of the map at all. It all kind of is dealt with up here, which means that I literally cannot wait to read the second and the third books in this series, which I do have, and they will be coming as soon as I get a chance to sit down and read them. So now you have an idea of where this story is actually set. Now, this story is primarily a story of betrayal. It starts with a betrayal, and then that is a theme that is very prevalent through the rest of the novel itself. And ultimately, there are characters that we come to know that we kind of lose track of for one reason or another. We don't really find out what happens to them. And that kind of leaves things up in the air for the next books. So with that said, if you don't want this book spoiled, if you want to go out and read it, by all means, I highly recommend anything by Raymond Feist, the greatest fantasy author, in my opinion. I absolutely love every single thing that he has written. But if you couldn't be bothered doing that and you want to know the story of King of Ashes, stick around for the next episode of
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay. King of Ashes starts with, as every good fantasy novel usually starts with, a fucking betrayal. There are 5 kingdoms in North Tembria, and the greatest of these kingdoms is called Thrace. Thrace is ruled by the Firemane king, and the 4 other kingdoms get together during this battle, and they turn on Thrace and they slaughter everyone. They slaughter the king and all of his family. Now, there is a baron who is not kind of allied with any of the kingdoms, but he is the king's friend. This baron, his kind of right-hand man is his bastard half-brother. And this baron discovers after the betrayal, where he witnesses his friend being killed, that one of the Firemanes, a baby, has survived. And he knows this because the baby is brought to his tent. He manages to hide the child, and then he finds a Colchartan master. Now, Colchartan is this kind of island where they raise like assassins and spies and things like that. So he finds this guy and he said, listen, I need you to take this baby back to Colchartan. I need you to raise it until the child is 17 years of age, and then you will bring the child back to me. That is the contract. For this, I will pay you X amount of gold every year, and so on and so forth. That is the prologue of the story. We then find out that this child has been raised on this island. He has to keep his hair dyed because he has this like flaming red hair, which is a sign of the Firemane clan, or the Firemane king, sorry. And he has been kind of trained and raised in the ways of assassins and spies and all that kind of cool shit, with two friends, this kid called Dante, who is the grandson of one of the masters of Colchartan, and this girl called Hava. So they are kind of friends together, and there are strict rules about, sleeping with the trainees and whatnot, and it all kind of gets flushed out through the course of the book. While this is going on, we get the story of Declan. Declan is a smith's apprentice. He is the apprentice to the smith who was actually the master smith of the Baron who saved Hatu, and he earned his freedom. So the Baron kind of set him free, but told him, if you ever manage to train another mastersmith like yourself, please send him to my barony. I could always use good smiths. So at the beginning of Declan's story, he has just finished his magnum opus, this amazing sword, and Edvald the smith declares that he is now a mastersmith. While he is celebrating, slavers come to the village, which is kind of unheard of because the village is in this place called the Covenant, where all of the kingdoms have agreed not to kind of touch it. So these slavers are kind of breaking that oath, and they attack the village, and Edvald tells Declan to leave with his other apprentice Dusan and a wounded woman called Roz, and to head to Marcanas, where the Baron kind of wanted the smith to send him. So he goes off on that journey. In the meantime, we jump back to Hatu. Now, I'm leaving a lot out here because there's a lot of stuff that kind of happens in the interim that's like political and religious. Like there used to be all of these different gods, but now this one god has come in and has declared themselves the religion and has been kind of persecuting the priests of the other gods and all that kind of stuff. That's all kind of going on in the background. Hatu and Dante have been sent on a mission. They are on North Tembria when they think they're just meant to rob this merchant, but it's actually an assassination hit. The merchant is killed and the group escape on a ship, but as they're escaping, they are followed by 3 other ships. So they go into the islands to hide. While they are hiding, these fish women things come out and kill everyone, and Hatu and Dante are taken prisoner in this underwater cave. Dante is going to be used as a sex slave to give these sea creatures daughters. They are going to eat Hatu, but one of the creatures uses dark magic to look in, realizes that he is fire-touched, and that bad things are going to happen if they kill him, so they set him free, but he feels guilty because Dante is still there, and he manages to get back to Colchartan to take this information to the masters there, namely the leader of all of Colchartan, this master called Zusara. Okay, Declan manages to get to the barony, takes Roz to her husband, and with the teamster Radigan, who has taken them in his cart, they find out that the smith in this town called Baron's Hill has been killed, and they're looking for a new smith. So Declan goes there with Jusan, negotiates, and manages to buy the smithy and set up shop there, all the while kind of falling in love with this innkeeper's daughter called Gwen. Hatu is sent to go to the barony, Markansas, or I'm pronouncing it wrong, but it's fantasy. Who gives a fucking shit, right? And he goes with one of the masters, and Hava, who has been told this kid is dangerous. Once the contract has been fulfilled and we've taken him to the barony, just like at the beginning of the book, he was told he had to go there. Your job is to kill him. So when you get word, you're going to kill him. Have you got a problem with that? She's like, no, not at all. But she does. They're best friends, and I think she's in love with him. While Declan is setting up the smithy there, some mercenaries come into the village and cause a lot of shit, and ultimately end up killing the main innkeeper, Leon, burning the inn to the ground, and kidnapping Gwen, who Declan is going to be married to, and Millie, who is the new waitress / cook / helper that Declan's apprentice Jusan is in love with. Declan gets a posse together, they ride out and find the guys and slaughter them. At this point, we're getting this idea that Declan has this really intense sense of honor. Hatu has this really intense sense of rage. And it comes from the fact that he is fire-touched. That it's a form of magic within him. There's all kinds of different types of magic. And the Firemane family have this fire-touched magic in them, which is usually spread out amongst like everyone in the Firemane family has a little bit of magic, but because everyone's dead, it's all gone into Hatu. So Hatu is like this thing that's waiting to explode, but the training on Kolchatan, he's learned to keep it in check a bit. So Hatu finally gets to the Baron of Markansas. What is that Baron's name? Dalen, Baron Dalen. There you go. He finally gets to meet Baron Dalen. Hava is under the guise of his wife, and Dalen takes Hatu aside and says, "Listen, I was friends with your father. I knew your father, and I'm one of the reasons why he's dead." And Hatu doesn't hold any ill will against Dalen, and basically just says, "You knew him. I never did. I appreciate your honesty. I owe you a debt of gratitude for saving my life. If there's anything you ever need, please let me know. Not quite sure what to do here." Dalen says, "Listen, I heard that this inn in Baron's Hill just burnt down. You can become an innkeeper. Here's some money. Take your wife. Fuck off." Doesn't say it like that, but that's the general gist. Declan has met Hatu, Hava, and another master, Bodai, had travelled with them. And he is in Baron's Hill, and Declan likes Hatu, and Hatu actually likes Declan. So we know that in the next book that Declan and Hatu are going to be set up in Baron's Hill. Whatever's going to happen, I don't know after this. This is going to be completely new to me, and I cannot fucking wait. What we do find out at the end of this book is Declan is actually Baron Dalen's bastard brother. So there is a familial relationship there. Declan has been making weapons for another Baron, Rodrigo, who is friends with Baron Dalen. And Rodrigo's Master of Arms has commissioned him to make more of these special swords, which is going to bring in a lot more money. So we find out that Baron Dalen, who never really liked the idea of the betrayal, which was led by the king of this kingdom called Sandura, this guy called Lodovico, who has allied himself with this new one church. It never really sat well with him, and he wants to rectify the situation. So he's been manipulating things behind the scenes and gathering weapons and secretly raising an army and all of this kind of stuff. So that's all been going on in the background of this book that we never really find out about. At the very end of the novel as well, there's a fisherman who is fishing on the west coast of Tambria, North Tambria, I should say. And this figure walks out of the ocean, kind of bedraggled, and the guy's like, are you okay? Gets him next to a fire, gets him some kind of warmish clothes, says, listen, you can come back to my farmstead, it's not too far from here, and my wife will make you a hot meal. Do you know your name? And the man says, Dante. So the guy that Hatu left in the cave with the fish women creatures comes back on the very last page of the book, and that's where it fucking ends. I left out so fucking much, but there is no way I could ever do a retelling of this justice. You've got to go out and fucking read this thing. I absolutely love it. Yes, it drags a little bit in the middle. It really does. When Hatu's remembering childhood things, and when you find out he gets angry at things and why he gets angry and blah, 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 blah. It drags. Every Raymond E. Feist book does that. That's not a slight on the author at all. As I said, my favorite fantasy author of all time. What it does is it builds your rapport with the characters. And once you have that, when something bad happens to them, you fucking feel it. When something good happens to them, you cheer with them. It's fucking brilliant. Now, this, of course, is only book one, and there are 2 more books in this series. I do own them, and they will be getting read and reviewed on this channel. Hopefully before I go back to work, because these are hefty books, and I don't want to carry them in my bag and have to read them on a fucking subway train. But with that said, I hope you go out there and you just explore the worlds of Raymond E. Feist. Check out Magician and Silverthorn and Darkness at Sethenon, the Rift War saga. Fucking phenomenal. But the thing is, as good as those books are, they get better. The series gets better. Talon of the Silver Hawk, one of my favorite books of all time, in the Raymond E. Feist kind of collection. It's basically a fantasy version of the Count of Monte Cristo. It's just great. I cannot speak highly enough. There are books where he actually writes with other famous fantasy authors, which is phenomenal. There's an entire trilogy that he's written with, cannot remember the author's name right now, but her books are set in the other world, not Midcamia, but the one that the rifts are kind of open up to. The world is vast, it's rich, there's monsters, there's magic, there's dragons, there's demons, there's everything you want. There's undead, there's cults, there's dark elves. It's freaking amazing. Go out, check out Raymond E. Feist. Now I'm going to end this video talking directly to a single person who I know watches my videos and who I know is a fan of Raymond E. Feist, and that is my good friend, Dr. Luke Carman. And to Dr. Luke Carman, I'm going to say this. Fuck you, dude. You told me you enjoyed him last year. We could have been talking about him the entire time we were at university. We could have been swapping stories. We could have been swapping books. You could have gotten me into David Gemmell earlier. So there you go, mate. Fuck you for keeping that back. But with that said, I'm kidding, of course. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, have a drink. Ta-da! Pardon me. Do all that good stuff. But most importantly, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, and of course, read a fucking book, people.